Today we're on page 85 in our notebook. We're going to be talking about similar figures again. We're going to be setting up our proportions, ratios within and between. So if you go ahead and pause your video so that you can set up your notebook. This is your warm-up. It says color code the corresponding sides, and then you have to fill these blanks in. In order for you to fill these blanks in, I would use your vocabulary that you wrote down yesterday. If you read your vocabulary from yesterday, you will get both of those answers. So go ahead and pause your video so that you can do your warm-up, and I will come around to check it. Alright, let's go over your warm-up really quickly, just so that we know that we got them correct if I didn't get to you. So let's color code our corresponding sides. I know that side AB corresponds to side DE. I know that side BC corresponds to side EF. And I also know that side AC corresponds to side DF, because those are all located on the same sides on my smaller triangle. Let's look at our trapezoid over here to the right. So I know that side WA corresponds to side SE. I know that side WT corresponds to side SN. I know that side TR corresponds to side NO. And then my last side, I know that side AR corresponds to side EO. So let's do the same thing on this one. This one's a little bit different because it's sideways, but I still know that side DE corresponds to the shorter side on my smaller trapezoid. Then I know that this bottom, the one that's right across from the red, I know that that side PR corresponds to side CE. And then I know that side DP corresponds with side EF. And then I'm only left with one, which is side ER, and that corresponds to side AC. If you looked at your vocabulary from yesterday, I know the corresponding sides are proportional, and then I also know that corresponding angles are congruent. And remember that congruent means the same thing as equal, or equal to each other. So let's go ahead and get our examples out. This is example A, so it gives you two trapezoids. One's a small one, one's a big one. So let's go ahead and label that. We have small and we have big. And the very first thing I want to do is color code the corresponding sides. So I know that side WZ is the same side on my bigger one, side DG. So I know that side WZ corresponds to side DG on my big one, because they're located on the same exact spot, but they're just, one's a small one, one's a big one. So let's look and let's do side WX. I know that side WX corresponds to side DE, because again, it's located in the same exact spot on the big one as the small one. One's just larger. I know that across from my blue, or right below it, is side YZ, or ZY, and I know that corresponds over here to side GF, or FG. I'm only left with one more, which is side XY, and that corresponds on my larger one to side EF. Now that I've color-coded, I can set up my proportions. So all I'm doing is I want to find out what I'm missing here and what I'm missing here. So I can do that because I color-coded, and it makes my life a lot easier. The very first thing I want to do is I want you to write small and big. When I'm comparing ratios within, I know that I can compare my small trapezoid to my big trapezoid. And so then what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and box this in here. So what I also am aware is WZ is red. So I'm going to make this WZ red. The next thing I know is that WZ compares on my big side right here next to it, because it's equal to, my WZ or my red compares to DG on my big one. Notice how my reds are right next to each other. So let's look at the big one. We have DG over FG. So I have DG over FG or GF, however you want to do that. These are both on my big one, so I know that this is a good ratio here. Then I need something on my small one. But if you notice, I'm going from FG. FG is green, so let's go ahead and box that in green. So next to it, I need another green one, but if you notice, I want it on the small trapezoid because this is in the small box. So my FG or my green corresponds to YZ on my small one. So I know this. I know that on my small one, I have WZ and YZ, and I want to double check. Are those two sides on my small trapezoid? WZ, yes, it's on my small one. YZ, yes, it's on my small one. So I know that that is a good one. Then I compare to my big one. And my big is right here. And let's see, DG, that is on my big one, and then FG is also my big one. The only other thing to check is that these right here are both green. Those are both green, and then I need to double check to make sure that these are both red because they have to be next to each other. Those colors have to be next to each other. So let's look at a different way that we can set up our ratios. The next way that we can set up our ratios is between, and so I want to first label small and big off to the side. You can set up ratios either way when we start dealing with numbers. And so you're going to be more familiar with it, but you need to be familiar with both of them. And so now I know that I have WZ and ZY. If you notice, this, because I did this way, these are my small ones. Those are all my small trapezoid. So now I have to look at WZ. Well, WZ is red. So whatever's below it also needs to be red, but it needs to be on my big trapezoid. So the red one on my big one is DG. Then I look at ZY. Well, ZY or YZ is green. So I know that this has to be green. So ZY on my larger one corresponds to the other green, which is GF or FG. So those are two different ways that you can write your ratios. But if you box them in, it's a lot easier to familiarize yourself with these. Example B says, gives you two triangles and he wants you to write the ratios within and between. So whenever I'm dealing with within, I know that my small and big goes on top. And then I want to go ahead and label this small and big. And so then I want to color code. So I know that side AC, where that right angle is, corresponds to side DF. It's like a mirror image, so it's flipped the other way, but those correspond to each other. I know that this side here, this bottom, corresponds to this bottom over here. And I only have one thing left, which is side AB, and that corresponds to side DE. Remember that there are different ways that you can mark this. I can mark this like this, and then I'd have to have 2 marks here, and then 3 marks here, however you choose to label them. So let's look at our small and our big. So I know that AB and CB are both on my small one. Those all go together. So I need to find something on my big one that's going to correspond with AB. Well, I know that AB is blue. So what I know is that this across from it also needs to be blue, but it needs to be on my larger one. The one that's on my larger one that's blue is side DE. So that goes here. Then I look at side BC or CB, and I know that that is green. So I need to see on my larger one what side is green? Well, the side that's green is FE or EF. And so that's going to go in this green box. So we have now done our proportion for within, but now we need to do between. Remember, anytime you do between, the small and the big go on the side here. And so instead of it going sideways, my colors matching sideways, they're going to match up and down. So I see where my DE is, and my DE happens to be blue. So I know on my small one, it also needs to be the color that's blue, which happens to be AB. This is the side that is blue. So then I look at FE, and I know that that is green. So I know that the one that goes on top also needs to be green, but it needs to be on the small one. And so I look on my small one, the one that's green is BC. So now I've done my within and between. Example C is the same thing. So I need to do within and between. So the very first thing I want to do is I want to label my small and my big. And then I want to color code. So I know that side XY corresponds to side RS. I know that side ST corresponds to side YZ. And the last one I know is that side XZ corresponds to RT. So let's look at within. Remember that anytime we do within, my small and big goes on the top. It's very important that you label these. And so what I know is that RS, which is my red, is going to correspond to a red one that's on my big one. Well, that corresponds to XY. Then I look for ZY, and ZY, or YZ, is my green one right here. And so I know that I need a green one that's next to it. So that green one corresponds to ST on my small one. I do the same thing on my between, except the only difference is that I know that my small and my big labels go on the left. So what I know is that TS corresponds to ZY because that tells me already, and I know that that's green because my TS is right here, my ZY is here, and those are both green. So what I have to do here is just pick any other color. So I can pick red or blue. I don't know, I feel like doing red, so that's the one that I'm going to choose. And so the red one on my small one, because remember that one goes first, my small one on the red is going to be RS. And then I have to look on my big one, which is red, is going to be XY. Go ahead and make sure that you glue these notes in. If you have any questions, raise your hand, and then you have a practice sheet that's half a page. That's going to be due at the end of class. It's a front and a back, but it's a small half sheet, and you only have 6 problems. So raise your hand if you need any help, and make sure that you glue those notes in.